Hey guys, tonight we're rolling out the sleeping bag of history and tucking you in with a story that's more uncomfortable than falling asleep on a public bus. The reality of the Xylazine epidemic currently haunting Philadelphia. Forget medieval plagues, forget Victorian leeches. Tonight, we're exploring something so modern and bizarre, you almost wish it was ancient history. But no, it's 2024, and Philly's got a new problem. A street drug that literally rots flesh turns you into a medical horror story and makes you question whether your city's founding fathers ever planned for this level of gritty. So before you burrow into your blanket fortress, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from, what time it is, and whether you've ever had the pleasure of dodging a suspicious puddle on a big city sidewalk. Because honestly, it's always 2 a.m. somewhere, and someone's always regretting their last cheesesteak. Now dim the lights, crank up the fan for that soothing white noise, or, to drown out the sound of existential dread, and settle in. Tonight's journey is going to be equal parts soothing and slightly revolting. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what it's actually like to live in a city famous for brotherly love, soft pretzels, and lately, flesh-eating street drugs? Are people really out here dodging potholes and zombie wounds on their morning commute? Did Ben Franklin ever invent a solution for trank sores? How do you survive in a place where even your pharmacist is Googling your symptoms in real time? Would you last a day navigating a city where your choices are run, treat, or join a support group for the chronically confused? And most importantly, can you really sleep through anything if you're from Philly? Congratulations. You've just woken up in Philadelphia, 2024. You have a weird rash, your phone is out of battery, and you can smell soft pretzels, but that's not all you smell. Good luck. You open your eyes on a cracked vinyl couch somewhere in the heart of Kensington, Philly's unofficial capital of both hope and horror. There's a pigeon staring at you through a broken window, and the morning air is thick with the scent of exhaust, stale bagels, and a faint chemical tang. Welcome to another day in a city where the sun rises, but your neighbour might not. Congratulations, you've made it through the night. It's a small miracle, honestly. If there's one thing Kensington teaches, it's that you should never take waking up for granted, especially when the soundtrack is a mix of distant sirens, trolley wheels screeching, and the low, persistent hum of someone somewhere shouting, "Yo!" for the 5th time before breakfast. The couch beneath you offers all the support of a used banana peel, sagging in the middle like the city's collective resolve. But hey, it's yours, and the rent is paid in loose change and questionable life choices. As the sun crawls reluctantly over the rooftops, your eyes adjust to the interior landscape. Peeling linoleum, a fridge decorated with faded scepter schedules, and a mysterious patch of mould that's somehow shaped exactly like the state of New Jersey. There's a dampness in the air that can't be explained by meteorology. It's more of a philosophical dampness, the kind that seeps into your bones and gently reminds you, hey, maybe today's the day you start carrying hand sanitizer in bulk. Outside, the street is already alive. You hear the thump of a bass line drifting from a passing car, the scrape of a broom as an elderly neighbour bravely attempts to sweep away the city's latest layer of urban snow. Translation, pulverised styrofoam and cigarette butts, and the delicate footsteps of a cat making its rounds. You close your eyes for a second, pretending it's Paris, but Paris probably doesn't have quite as many hypodermic needles in the gutters. The air, always busy with news, carries the unmistakable aroma of someone frying bacon 2 houses down. An invitation, a taunt, or possibly a hallucination. You take a deep breath, immediately regretting it as the unique Kensington blend hits your sinuses. Top notes of old coffee, diesel, and the sharp metallic zing of trank in the distance. They should bottle it and sell it to tourists just to see the look on their faces. You stretch, feeling a twinge in your shoulder. Is that from sleeping on the couch? Or is it the creeping dread that comes with checking the morning news? On the wall, a crooked clock ticks with the determination of someone who's just accepted that time in Kensington runs on its own rules. 5 minutes late, always. Unless you're waiting for something good, then it's an hour behind. You wander to the window. Outside, the block is waking up in its own special way. A local jogger, more fast walker, clutching mace than an Olympic hopeful, weaves around potholes and slaloms between trash cans. There's a cluster of people at the bus stop, their expressions ranging from stoic to, "I can't believe I'm doing this again." Somewhere, a radio blares the weather forecast, which could be summed up as damp with a 100% chance of mild existential crisis. It's in these first moments, blurry-eyed, slightly sore, blinking at the chaos, that you realise Kensington isn't just a place. It's a survival sport, a living diorama of American persistence and poor city planning. The corner store across the street is already open, selling coffee strong enough to wake the dead and bandages for wounds both literal and metaphorical. Someone nods at you as you walk past, a silent greeting that says, "We made it another day." Don't ask how. This is life on Kensington Avenue. You never know if the next knock on your door will be a friend, a city worker, or just another daydream on the breeze. You take one more deep breath, grateful to be vertical, grateful your couch didn't collapse in the night, and grateful, most of all, that in a city full of unpredictability, at least you know how to spot a pigeon with an attitude problem. Welcome to your morning, welcome to Philadelphia, and good luck out there. It starts with an itch. Not the maybe I should shower itch, but the is my skin still attached? Variety. In Philly, that's just the morning routine if you're living near the Xylazine epicenter. You scratch, you worry, you Google, and immediately regret it. Because Google, as always, chooses violence. You sit there on the edge of your bed, half awake, staring at your arm like it's betrayed you personally. The itch isn't dramatic, it's quiet, persistent, polite even, like it's waiting for permission to escalate. You tell yourself it's nothing. Dry skin, stress, maybe the couch. The couch has seen things. But deep down, you know this itch has ambition. You give it another scratch. Bad move. Now it tingles in a way that feels organised, purposeful. You've had mosquito bites. You've had allergic reactions. This feels different. This feels like your body has joined a group chat without inviting you. Welcome to symptom roulette. In Kensington, everyone knows the early signs, even if no one wants to say them out loud. The itching, the numbness, the weird combination of pain and not pain that makes you wonder if your nerves are taking a personal day. You flex your fingers just to make sure they still belong to you. They do, for now. You check the mirror. Big mistake. Mirrors in the morning are already dangerous, but now you're inspecting yourself like a detective who's watched too many medical documentaries. Is that redness new? Was that spot there yesterday? Has your skin always looked this opinionated? You remind yourself to breathe, slowly, calmly, through your nose. Because panic is bad, and so is deep breathing when the air smells faintly like diesel fuel and regret. Let's talk about the itch itself. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It settles in and refuses to leave, like a house guest who keeps saying they'll crash just one more night. You try ignoring it. You fail. You try scratching gently. You fail harder. Now your arm feels warm in a way that makes your brain start drafting contingency plans. You consider your options. Do you ask someone? Do you wait? Do you pretend it's not happening and hope it sorts itself out like every other bad decision you've ever made? This is Philadelphia. The answer is usually option 3. Outside, the city continues completely unbothered by your personal medical mystery. Someone is arguing with a parking meter. A SEPTA bus sighs loudly at a red light. A man walks past holding a coffee and a roll of gauze which feels ominous. You take this as a sign, though you're not sure of what. You remember all the stories, Everyone has one. A cousin, a neighbour, a guy who used to sell bootleg DVDs and now wears long sleeves year-round, regardless of weather. The phrase trank floats through your head like a curse word you're not supposed to say before noon. And yet, life goes on. You put on a hoodie. Not because it's cold, but because hoodies are the unofficial uniform of, I'm not ready to talk about this. You tell yourself you'll keep an eye on it. You'll hydrate. You'll definitely not Google it again. You absolutely will Google it again. The itch pulses once more as if reminding you it's still there. You sigh. This is how it starts, not with sirens or headlines, but with a tiny, annoying sensation that refuses to be ignored. No dramatic music, no warning label, just your body quietly asking, hey, can we talk? You scratch once more, softer this time, then stop. There's a strange calm that settles in. Not relief, acceptance. You've entered the waiting phase now, where you monitor, adapt, and continue functioning because that's what people here do. In Kensington, symptoms don't announce themselves. They linger. They test you. And you learn very quickly that the first itch isn't the worst part. It's the uncertainty. And somehow, you keep going anyway. Philadelphia is famous for its sports fans, cheesesteaks, and ability to clock someone's entire life story with a single look. Out here, you learn to spot the warning signs, the limp, the bandaged arm, the shuffling gait of someone who's mixing substances and questionable life decisions. It's not a skill you're born with. It's earned. The way city people learn to cross against traffic or judge the weather by the colour of the Schuylkill River. You develop the Philly scan, one glance up, down and sideways. If you grew up here, it's as instinctive as flinching when someone mentions Dallas. Out-of-towners are obvious. They walk around smiling, making eye contact, getting confused when someone gives them a head nod that could mean hello, back off, or the Eagles still stink. But you know the drill. You spot the limp before the person even rounds the corner. It's not your garden variety ran for the bus limp, but the specific side-to-side shuffle of someone who's fought the sidewalk and lost. Sometimes they drag a foot, sometimes it's more of a hop. There's always a moment as they approach where you wonder if you should offer help or pretend you didn't notice. In Philly, the answer is almost always, look, but don't stare, unless you're an old lady on the stoop. Then you get to stare all you want. You notice the hands, or more precisely what's wrapped around the hands. Gauze, ACE bandages, scarves, sometimes plastic grocery bags tied tight, giving off big "this is fine" energy. The wound care game here is strong, but not always effective. You can tell the difference between someone sporting a bandage for fashion and someone who just found out the hard way what necrosis means. The eyes tell the rest of the story. Philly is full of hard stares and soft hearts, but there's a certain glazed determination you see among the trank crowd. It's a look that says, yes, my arm is wrapped in a ShopRite receipt, and no, I don't have time for your opinions. There's a kind of bravado in it, a refusal to admit pain or defeat, like a guy insisting the Eagles will win it all this year, despite all evidence to the contrary. Let's be clear, the city's always been a little rough around the edges, but these days everyone's radar is turned up to 11. You pass someone on the block and automatically clock the signs. The shuffling gait, the oversized hoodie in July, the hurried don't look at me glance. You're not judging, not really. You're just doing what every Philadelphian does, keeping one eye out for trouble and the other out for anyone who might need a hand. You know that sometimes it's not about fear, it's about awareness. In this city, a little side-eye can mean the difference between minding your business and being the business. You catch snippets of conversations as you walk, sometimes wild, sometimes so real you want to write them down. Did you see Tommy's bandage? It's getting bigger. She was at the clinic again. Heard they're giving out free Narcan down the block. You file it away. In Philly, neighborhood news travels faster than Wi-Fi, and nothing gets past the collective watch of the city's unofficial neighbourhood patrol. Everyone. There's something almost comforting about it. Yes, there's judgment, but there's also a kind of solidarity, a shared recognition that the city is rough, but so are the people in it. You watch out for your own. Maybe you hand over a spare pair of gloves. Maybe you offer a tip about the good wound care nurse at the clinic. Maybe you just nod, that little lift of the chin that says, we're all in this together, for better or worse. In the end, Philly's side-eye isn't just suspicion. It's a weird form of love, a way of keeping track, staying connected and making sure nobody falls through the cracks, even when the cracks are wide enough to swallow half a city block. And as you keep walking, dodging potholes and the occasional rogue goose, you realise, in Philadelphia, the side-eye isn't just an attitude, it's a survival strategy. The founding fathers survived smallpox, yellow fever and questionable wig glue. But even they couldn't have dreamed up Xylazine, a drug so bad you wonder if it crawled out of the Schuylkill itself. Imagine Franklin inventing bifocals just to read about necrosis in the Philadelphia Inquirer. You picture it now. Ben Franklin, standing in his dusty workshop, fiddling with a chitin key, glancing out at a Philadelphia that's mostly muddy streets and philosophical debates. He's worried about lightning, gout, and possibly the dangers of eating too many oysters. It never crosses his mind that in a few centuries the city's hottest medical trend would be a veterinary tranquilizer with a side hustle in dissolving flesh. Franklin was a man of science, but zombie drug would have sounded like a bad theatre production even to him. What would the American Enlightenment have made of all this? Franklin, Adams and Jefferson once debated liberty, taxes, and whether powdered wigs should be lightly scented. But in 2024, the big debate in Philly is, does anyone have extra gauze? And how do we clean a wound that glows in the dark? The spirit of the revolution was grit and resourcefulness, but nobody had rot-proof bandages in the original Bill of Rights. Let's be honest, Philadelphia has always been a city of firsts. First library, first hospital, first place to throw snowballs at Santa. But even in a city with such a proud tradition of weirdness, the idea of a street drug that makes your skin give up is a plot twist no one saw coming. Franklin helped design the city's water system. Now he'd need a whole new blueprint. Install a Narcan dispenser next to every Liberty Bell souvenir stand, and maybe slap a hazmat warning on the Welcome to Philly sign. You imagine Franklin writing to his friends in Paris, "Dear Monsieur, please send help. Our city is beset by an enemy more insidious than British taxes, something called tranq, which appears to be a mixture of veterinary sedative and pure existential dread. Also, the cheesesteaks are better than ever, but one must dodge puddles of never mind. If he were here today, Franklin would try to fix things, because that's what he did. Inventor of the lightning rod, the glass harmonica, and very nearly daylight savings time, he'd no doubt get to work creating a wearable flesh rot detector, or possibly a community rot area where you could get patched up, fed, and mildly insulted all in one go. The slogan, "We hold these wounds to be self-evident, that all men are created in need of antibiotics," yet the most Franklin-esque response to the Xylazine epidemic would probably be practical, low-key, and a little bit snarky. He might propose a pamphlet. Poor Richard's Guide to Not Falling Apart on Kensington Avenue. It would be full of home remedies, sensible warnings, and at least one proverb about why you should never trust a drug named after a farm animal. And, let's be real, Franklin would be fascinated by the resilience on display. In a city where the solution to every problem is usually just walk it off, Philly residents have developed an entire culture around staying intact. Neighbourhood groups form to distribute clean supplies. Local pharmacists know everyone's favourite bandage. Even the pigeons have a kind of wise look, as if to say, "We've seen worse." Remember when people threw chamber pots out the window? It's a different era, but the spirit of the city is the same. People hustle, they improvise, they endure. It's not quite the revolution Franklin fought for, but it's a kind of survival that would make even the most powdered founding father tip his hat in respect. So next time you walk past Independence Hall, try to picture Franklin there, shaking his head and mumbling, "I invented bifocals for this?" And then, as every Philadelphian does, he'd roll up his sleeves and get to work. You shuffle into a corner pharmacy, clutching your prescription and your dignity. The pharmacist's smile is tight, the shelves are suspiciously empty, and the advice boils down to, maybe try not to get any open wounds. That's the dream, isn't it? In another city, a pharmacy might be a place of calm, air conditioning, a faint whiff of lavender hand soap, the gentle ping of the bell as you enter. Here in Philly, it's more like stepping into a triage unit with fluorescent lights. You're not alone either. There's a line of people stretching all the way to the greeting cards, each of them clutching their own little hope. Antibiotics, ointment, bandages, or simply a place to stand out of the rain. The magazines by the register promise 10 steps to better health, but you're pretty sure step 1 is move to a city where flesh-eating drugs aren't a thing. You try not to make eye contact, but everyone in here is a veteran. There's the guy nervously rewrapping his forearm in a scarf, the lady with the travel-sized Lysol wipes, and the grandmother who's seen it all and isn't afraid to shush anyone arguing about whose turn it is. The air hums with that peculiar Philly tension. Part camaraderie, part if you cough near me, I'm calling the CDC. You finally reach the counter. The pharmacist greets you by name, because that's how things go here. Pharmacies in Philly are a neighbourhood's real community centre, especially when things get weird. Today's inventory is even weirder than usual. Gauze is a precious commodity. Hand sanitizer is locked in a little lucite box like it's the Hope Diamond. There's a handwritten note taped to the shelf where the clean syringes used to be. Ask for assistance. You feel like you're trying to buy concert tickets from a scalper. Somewhere, Ben Franklin is rolling in his grave, or at least asking why Band-Aids cost more than whiskey. You present your prescription with a kind of optimism reserved for people who still believe in next-day delivery. The pharmacist checks the computer, frowns, types a bit more, and finally sighs. "We might have some, but you'll have to come back after lunch." The delivery truck's running late, again. There's an unspoken rule in Philadelphia. Delivery trucks are always running late. The universe is mildly against you, and you should never trust the expiration date on wound cream. While you wait, you scan the aisles for anything remotely useful. Hydrogen peroxide, gone. Medical tape, sold out. There's plenty of seasonal allergy medicine though, as if pollen is the most terrifying thing on these streets. You spot a lonely box of Epsom salts and wonder if you can pass it off as a miracle cure. You remember stories of people bartering with caffeine pills and unopened face masks, post-apocalyptic but with more sarcasm. A regular walks in and gets the secret handshake treatment, a nod from the cashier and a brown paper bag, no words exchanged. You watch and wonder if the bag contains the real prize, clean needles, antibiotic ointment, or maybe just a sympathetic ear. In Philly, empathy is often wrapped up in a receipt and passed over the counter, disguised as small talk. The door jingles again. Someone is asking about Narcan. The pharmacist points to a laminated sign, "Free. Just ask." You feel a little pride. For all the city's struggles, harm reduction here isn't just a buzzword, it's a lifeline. Everyone knows someone who's needed a miracle, and sometimes miracles come in tiny nasal spray bottles. Eventually your prescription arrives, tucked into a little white bag. The pharmacist whispers, "Take care out there," and you nod back, both of you knowing that advice in Philly covers more than just wounds. You walk out with a bag of medical supplies, a new respect for anyone working retail, and a sense that surviving here is part scavenger hunt, part endurance sport, and, when you're lucky, a small, ordinary miracle. Welcome to the pharmacy crawl. Bring your patience, your sense of humour, and, if you can find it, a little hope. On some Philly blocks you see more bandages than umbrellas. Neighbours discuss necrosis the way others talk about the weather. It's not, "How's your day?" but "How's your wound looking?" and the answer is never better. You step outside into a living tableau of medical improvisation. The neighbour on the stoop is sporting enough gauze to pass for a mummy, waving at the UPS driver with one unbandaged finger. Across the street, old Mrs. Di Lorenzo is watering her porch plants with one hand while dabbing antibiotic ointment on a suspicious spot with the other. There's a gentle hum of city life, punctuated by the soft rip of tape and the ever-present snap of rubber gloves. Welcome to the block party, 2024 style, where instead of grill smoke, the air smells faintly of antiseptic and denial. Conversations here have evolved. Weather's still a safe topic, but "How's your rot?" is just as likely to get a thoughtful answer. It's spreading, but I'm keeping it dry," says your neighbour with the resigned cheer of someone discussing a flat tyre. Doctor says it's fine unless it changes colour, or falls off. You nod in solidarity, grateful your own skin still feels attached, but also quietly noting that you should probably up your vitamin C intake just in case. Every block has its resident medical expert, a retired nurse, someone with 3 semesters of community college, or just that one guy who Googled necrosis and now thinks he's house, MD. These street clinicians hold impromptu wound inspections, armed with a flashlight, a salt shaker for morale, and a terrifying stash of medical anecdotes. They offer advice that ranges from surprisingly sound, "keep it clean, keep it dry," to delightfully reckless, "duct tape fixed my transmission, it'll fix this." Everyone's a little more knowledgeable these days, or at least a little more confident in pretending. You notice the rituals. There's the daily bandage change, performed with the precision of a sacred rite. Friends gather on stoops, peeling back layers of gauze, wincing in sympathy, and offering new supplies like offerings to a temple. Someone always has extra tape, someone else brings neosporin, and everyone brings stories. Remember Jimmy's foot? Thing looked like a science project. He's fine now, mostly. There's something comforting about the communal approach to disaster, as if sheer willpower and collective advice can outpace modern pharmacology. The language has changed too. It's just a scratch now means I may need a skin graft. Its healing could mean anything from scabbing over to not actively dripping. Compliments are adapted for the times. "Hey, that's a really even wrap job," or "nice sterile technique, Fran." Even the block's pets have gotten involved. The neighbourhood cat, usually indifferent, now inspects legs for unwrapped patches before settling down, as if monitoring public health. Kids, resilient as ever, accept this as normal. Bandages are traded on the playground like baseball cards. "I got a Paw Patrol, what do you got?" The local ice cream truck now sells latex gloves next to bomb pops. If you had a nickel for every time a child asked, "What's that smell?" you'd have enough for a bulk order of hand sanitizer. Despite the rot, or maybe because of it, people look out for each other more. Someone checks in if you miss your usual stoop appearance. Groceries appear on porches. Extra medical supplies are slipped into mailboxes. There's a dark humour in it all. Jokes about zombie auditions and the block with the best-dressed wounds. But underneath, it's just neighbourliness, Philly style, a little gruff, a lot real, and always ready with a roll of tape. This is how you live on the block now. Every greeting is a check-in, every story a shared survival guide. It's not pretty, it's not easy, but it's honest. And in Philadelphia, that's about as good as it gets. Dinner options are endless. Classic cheesesteak, soft pretzel, or whatever's in that brown paper bag. But when Xylazine's around, half the neighbourhood moonlights as a street medic, patching up wounds with duct tape and pure willpower. It's 6 p.m. on the avenue and the scent of sizzling beef and onions drifts down the block, weaving between parked cars and city trash cans. If you're lucky, Your biggest dilemma tonight is provolone or whiz. If you're not, you're weighing the pros and cons of disinfecting a cut with hot sauce packets because the pharmacy's closed and the bodega is out of hydrogen peroxide again. In this city, first aid and fast food come with equal urgency and nearly identical packaging. You watch as your neighbour balances a cheesesteak in one hand and a roll of medical tape in the other, giving triage advice between bites. You gotta press on it. No, harder. Here, use this napkin. No, not that one. It's got mustard on it. On this street, culinary wrappers and makeshift gauze are sometimes the same thing. You can spot a local medic by the ketchup stains on their jeans and the faint whiff of antiseptic that lingers long after sunset. The block's unofficial medical clinic is a folding card table set up outside the corner store. It's stacked with baggies of gauze, a bottle of off-brand hand sanitizer, and an open box of nitrile gloves scavenged from who knows where. A handwritten sign reads, "Street meds, no judgment, free advice, tips accepted." The guy running it is equal parts EMT and cheesesteak enthusiast, with a side hustle as the neighbourhood gossip. He'll patch you up and, if you're lucky, slip you a coupon for $2 off your next hoagie. On nights like this, medicine and meals overlap in the most Philly way possible. You unwrap your sandwich and overhear 3 wound care consultations in the time it takes to decide if you want hot peppers. You think I need stitches? Nah, just keep it dry. It's leaking though, then wrap it tighter. Also, did you try the roast pork at 9th and Passyunk? Survival here is a team sport. Everyone's got advice, and nobody's shy about giving it, even when it's unsolicited and probably unsound. You take a bite of your cheesesteak and reflect on the absurdity of it all. In some places, street food means adventure. In Philly, it's a bonding ritual, and right now it's practically a support group. A stranger offers you a Band-Aid from their wallet. Someone else has a tip about which ER has the shortest wait. There's something deeply comforting about this communal approach to disaster. If you're bleeding, you'll get help. If you're hungry, someone will split their fries with you. If you're both, you'll probably wind up with a story worth retelling. Down the block, a grandmother hands out baggies of homemade cookies and extra gloves for anyone who needs them. The little kids trade stickers and ouchless bandages, turning their wounds into badges of honour. Everyone's got a scar and a favourite cheesesteak joint, and no one's shy about showing off either. You learn to appreciate the resourcefulness. A shot glass cleaned with rubbing alcohol, a cut cleaned with seltzer water, a splint made from a popsicle stick, and the sheer force of Philly stubbornness. After dinner, people gather on stoops to swap stories about food, about wounds, about who patched up whom, and who owes whom a soda. It's community medicine with a side of cheese fries. You look around and realise there's no official playbook for surviving in a city where street drugs and street food are equally legendary. There's just grit, generosity, and the quiet understanding that you're all in this together, for better, for worse, and for whatever's in that brown paper bag. Here, healing is communal, laughter is medicinal, and even on the roughest blocks, dinner time is a reminder that comfort, connection, and survival can come wrapped in paper, tape, or a warm roll, whichever you need most. Living here is like playing an endless game of the floor is lava. Every surface might be hazardous. You learn to hover above benches, high-five with elbows, and never ever sit down on public transport. It's not that you're paranoid. Well, okay, maybe you're a little paranoid, but only because you've seen things. Touching the wrong surface in Philadelphia isn't a rookie mistake. It's a rite of passage. It's the reason why locals can spot tourists from a mile away. They're the ones sitting directly on the park bench, clutching their water bottles, and blissfully unaware that that exact spot was home to 3 pigeons, a dropped cheesesteak, and, for a brief period last Tuesday, someone's bandaged foot. You become an expert at the squat and hover. Benches, stoops, bus shelters, none of these are meant for full contact. You see a free seat and your first thought isn't lucky me, but when was this last cleaned, and what are the odds that's ketchup? You can lower yourself halfway, knees shaking, only to abort mission when you spot the dreaded shimmer of unknown moisture. That's Philly for don't even think about it. Grabbing a handrail on the trolley is a calculated risk. You try to only use your pinky, delicately balanced between stability and I'll just fall over if it comes to that. Gloves are useful, but only if you don't have to touch your own face afterward. In winter, you pull your sleeves over your hands. In summer, you master the art of opening doors with a key, an elbow, or, if absolutely desperate, the tip of your sneaker. On Scepter, you try to remain upright, holding your breath like it's part of the fair. High fives are no longer a gesture of celebration, but a careful choreography, elbows only, elbows, fist bumps with a layer of fabric. Sometimes just a knowing nod, both of you acknowledging the mutual desire to remain as uninfected as possible. You develop a whole new respect for jazz hands. They're expressive and, most importantly, hands-off. Let's talk about ATMs. You use your knuckle for every button and stand back, squinting, as if eye contact alone will transfer germs. You avoid touch screens unless you've watched the cashier wipe them down, and even then, you wonder if they're using the same rag for everything. You carry hand sanitizer like it's a family heirloom. You have strong opinions about brands, scents, and viscosity. Elevators? You'd rather take the stairs and burn some extra calories than risk being trapped in a box with mysterious fingerprints and recycled air. And escalators, nature's moving petri dish, are handled with caution and a silent prayer. If you must press a button, you wrap your sleeve around your finger and make a mental note to never wear that shirt again. It's not just outside. Even at home, you treat your mail like it's radioactive. Packages are opened with tongs, or, if you're feeling fancy, a pair of scissors you immediately quarantine. Groceries are wiped down, phones are disinfected, and the remote is off limits to guests. In Philly, hospitality means I'll wave from across the room and not offer you a seat. You start to see the world in new ways. Every object is a potential threat, but also an opportunity for creative problem solving. You invent new ways to carry groceries, open doors, or pet your neighbour's dog. Answer, you don't. Your calves are stronger, your balance improved, and your ability to sidestep puddles and city ooze is unmatched. Maybe you can't do the splits, but you can leap over a suspicious stain like an Olympic hurdler. And when someone asks why you never touch anything, you just smile and say experience. Because in Philly, it's not about being squeamish, it's about survival. The art of not touching anything is just another day in a city that teaches you to stay on your toes, quite literally, and to keep a bottle of sanitizer handy at all times. Rumours move fast in Philly. One day it's a zombie sighting on Lehigh. The next, it's a guy with a flesh wound giving directions to the Liberty Bell. You start to wonder, what's urban legend and what's just Monday? In Philadelphia, the line between fact and fiction is blurrier than a tourist's vision after trying to cross Broad Street during the Mummers Parade. News travels on foot, by bus, and through 1,000 group chats. Stories evolve in real time, growing new limbs and extra details, like the city itself is ghostwriting for the tabloids. 1 minute, you hear someone shuffle down Kensington in pyjama pants, arms outstretched, groaning for ibuprofen. By sunset, it's Philly's got zombies, don't drink the water. It doesn't help that everyone knows someone who's seen something. You hear about the lady at the bus stop who swears a tranq user tried to bite her ankle, but also asked if she had the Wi-Fi password. There's the story of a guy who walked into a Wawa with his arm in a makeshift sling, half gauze, half duct tape, and at least one bread bag, politely ordered a coffee, and shuffled out, leaving behind a gaggle of wide-eyed teens convinced the apocalypse is starting on their lunch break. What really fuels these tales, though, is Philly's legendary ability to dramatize daily life. Every city has its stories, but here, A slightly odd encounter is destined to become neighbourhood folklore by dinner time. He just kept walking, and his bandage was glowing. Swear on my mother's grave. Never mind that the glow was probably just the reflection of a SEPTA bus sign. In Philly, if a story doesn't have at least one supernatural twist, it's not finished yet. You scroll social media and see posts tagged #TrankZombie or #PhillyUndead, full of grainy cell phone videos and frantic commentary. Some are obvious jokes, but some, well, you start to wonder. Did you see this guy on 5th? He was drooling and staring into space. Someone replies, "That's my cousin. He always looks like that." In a city this big, sometimes the strangest thing is how normal the bizarre feels. It's not just teenagers and Twitter. Even old-timers getting on the action. They sit on their stoops swapping tales of back in my day. All you had to worry about was someone stealing your shoes, not your skin. They remember the crack epidemic, the opioid crisis, and the year someone dressed as a werewolf for Halloween in March and started a citywide panic. To them, the Xylazine zombies are just the latest chapter in a long-running saga. Same problems, different monsters. Of course, none of this means the crisis isn't real. It's just that Philly's always been a place where hardship comes wrapped in a story, and everyone needs a little gallows humour to get through the day. When wounds fester and the news runs wild, people look for explanations that make sense, or at least make them laugh. Zombies are scary, but less so than the idea that the city's problems have no easy fix. Plus, a zombie can be outrun. Bureaucracy can't. Still, you take precautions. You cross the street when you see someone shambling a bit too slowly, and you keep a mental catalogue of which blocks are safe, which are spicy, and which are possible film sets for The Walking Dead Philly edition. You learn to distinguish between someone in genuine need and someone who's just a little too committed to their Halloween costume. At the end of the day, urban legends serve a purpose. They make people pay attention, if only for a moment. They get neighbours talking, sharing warnings, swapping band-aids and backstory. And in Philly, where community is forged through fire, snow, and the occasional outbreak of questionable behaviour, a good legend is worth its weight in gold, or at least in clean gauze. So the next time someone swears they saw a trank zombie lurching down your block, just shrug, nod and say, "Only in Philly." Because here, reality and rumour walk side by side, usually with a limp, and everyone's got a story to tell. Beneath the L, a folding chair circle gathers, nurses, users, grandmas and ex-cops all sharing stories. There's no judgment, just mutual confusion, and the faint hope that one day the only thing rotting in Philly will be the sports team's playoff dreams. The group meets right where the rumble of the train shakes the sidewalk, adding the city's own dramatic soundtrack to the evening's confessions. It's the kind of spot only Philly would choose for group therapy. Equal parts public, gritty, and weirdly inviting. Fluorescent light from a nearby bodega flickers across the circle, spotlighting faces worn by more than just years. Someone passes around a bag of soft pretzels because here, carbs are both communion and comfort. You take your seat, joining the regulars and the newcomers alike. The first rule of the group? No one's in charge, but everyone gets a turn. A nurse named Charlene opens up about patching wounds on her lunch breaks and how she started keeping an extra roll of medical tape in her purse, right next to her pepper spray and a battered eagles schedule. She's lost count of how many people she's patched up in the last month. Some days, she says, I feel like I'm running a field hospital out of my Corolla. Beside her, an older woman, everyone just calls her Nana, tells the story of her grandson, who got clean, relapsed, got clean again, and now leads harm reduction workshops for local teens. Nana's not shy about the details. She cracks jokes about city potholes, and then turns solemn when describing the long nights waiting for a call that he's safe. I used to worry about curfews, she says. Now I worry about pharmacies running out of gauze. Everyone nods. Someone hands her another pretzel. Then there's Big Dave, a retired cop with a Santa beard and a laugh like a diesel engine. He talks about the Kensington he used to patrol. Rough, sure, but never like this. He admits the city's changed, that the badge doesn't mean much when you're off duty and buying ointment for your neighbour's infected ankle. Cops and criminals, we all get old, he says. Now we just sit in these chairs and hope the next story has a happy ending. A man in a hoodie shares quietly about the night he realised he needed help, when his wound wouldn't heal and he was too scared to walk into the ER. He credits the group with keeping him alive, not just through medical tips, but through something less tangible: solidarity. Here, there's no shaming, no sideways glances, just knowing nods and the exchange of phone numbers for emergencies. As the circle goes around, the stories pile up, tales of bad luck, bad choices, and occasional, improbable victories. Everyone's got scars, but nobody hides them here. Instead, they're compared and catalogued, as if swapping baseball cards. This one, sidewalk in February. This one, borrowed someone's dog for emotional support, but it bit me anyway. Laughter is frequent, but never mean. The group understands. Humour is a bandage, too. Advice is handed out like Halloween candy. Try honey on that wound, suggests someone. No, not the grocery store stuff, the kind with the bear on it. Wrap it loose. Let it breathe. Don't let the city get under your skin. Literally. Most tips are practical. Some are mystical. All are offered with the sincerity of people who have learned survival through trial, error, and stubbornness. The trains overhead never stop, but neither does the sharing. It's messy, it's noisy, and sometimes it feels futile. But beneath the L, hope gets recycled as many times as the folding chairs. When the meeting ends, everyone lingers, reluctant to give up the circle's warmth and the rare feeling of being truly understood. In Philly, support isn't always official, but it's real. As you leave, someone calls out, "See you next week. Don't forget your Band-Aids." And you know they mean it. In this city, everyone's got a story, and sometimes sharing them is how you heal. You crave a shower that actually makes you feel clean. Instead, you get a dribble of lukewarm water and a soap that seems to give up halfway through. You eye your own skin like it's plotting something. The ritual of getting clean in Philly, especially in the age of Xylazine, is part wishful thinking, part endurance test. In the privacy of your aging bathroom, tiles cracked, grout the colour of urban folklore, you start the process full of optimism. You picture a steamy, cinematic cleanse, city grime swirling down the drain, you emerging fresh as a rocky montage. Reality, however, has other plans. First comes the wait. The water heater in your row home is older than half your neighbours. Sometimes it hums, sometimes it clicks, sometimes it just pouts. When it finally obliges, the water is less invigorating cascade and more sad sprinkle. You test the temperature with a toe, willing it to not be freezing. It isn't hot, but it also isn't cold enough to scream. You call that a win. You step in, close the curtain, always careful to avoid the mildew constellation in the corner, and grab your soap. The bar, once proud and robust, now resembles a half-melted ice cube. You lather up, determined, but it quickly fizzles out as if it too has accepted defeat. Is it actually soap, or just scented disappointment? You're not sure. You scrub harder, trying to summon bubbles, friction, or just a little hope. As you work, you become hyper-aware of every spot on your skin. Is that just dirt or the beginning of something more sinister? You inspect your elbows, your shins, the back of your knees. Philly showers aren't about luxury. They're about surveillance. You're not just washing away the day, you're conducting an amateur medical exam under flickering light bulbs. The water pressure is a delicate negotiation. Too low, and you're basically blessing yourself with droplets. Too high, and the pipes rattle like the L on a Friday night. You rinse with the urgency of someone trying to avoid both hypothermia and introspection. Behind the curtain, The outside world fades, replaced by the small, echoing bubble of your own thoughts. Is this rash new? Did that scratch look infected yesterday? Am I imagining things? Or does my left foot actually smell like cheese fries? You consider shampoo, but quickly realise it's just more wishful thinking. In Philly, hair products exist on a sliding scale between strips everything and leaves a film. You squeeze the bottle and it emits a pathetic squelch, like the last call at a dive bar. You make do, because that's what you do in the city. When you finally step out, wrapped in a towel that's seen better years, you stare into the foggy mirror. Your reflection is tired, a little raw, but still here. You poke at a suspicious freckle, dab at a scab, and make a silent promise to pick up better soap right after you pick up gauze, bandages, and more disinfectant. Hygiene here is an arms race, and your enemies are invisible but persistent. Out in the living room, you air dry by the fan, feeling only slightly cleaner and already suspicious that you missed a spot. Maybe it's psychological, maybe it's just Philly, but you never feel completely sanitized. There's always a remnant of street dust, a whisper of trank paranoia, a memory of someone coughing in the checkout line behind you. Still, you keep showering. It's not just about germs, it's about hope. A daily act of rebellion, a stand against the city's collective grime. You know you'll get dirty again before noon, but for a few shining moments you feel almost new. And in a city where staying clean is half luck and half persistence, that's as good as it gets. After all, Philly might take your shoes, your patience, and sometimes your peace of mind. But it never takes away your right to try again tomorrow. Soap, water, and whatever optimism you can lather up. Forget Bitcoin. In Philly, real currency is medical supplies. Gauze, tape, antiseptic wipes, hoarded, traded, and cherished. You can buy a sandwich, sure, but can you barter for a decent bandage? The corner deli still takes cash, but if you want an extra large roll of medical tape, you'd better be prepared to negotiate. Your neighbour across the hall has a stash that could supply a minor field hospital, but she's only open to trades. Half a box of nitrile gloves for 2 packets of Neosporin, or maybe she'll accept a 6-pack of ginger ale if you're running low on ointment. Supply and demand, Philly style. You quickly learn that everyone on your block is hustling for more than groceries. In this underground market, word of mouth is your best friend and the city's biggest liability. I heard Tony on Amber Street has gauze pads 3-ply, not the scratchy stuff, but he wants Lysol wipes in return. Suddenly, disinfectant wipes are a rare delicacy, exchanged in hushed tones behind the bodega, like you're in a medical-themed spy movie where the gadgets are all sterile. The hierarchy is real. The friend with the unopened bottle of isopropyl alcohol, untouchable. The woman who scored a bulk pack of Band-Aids at Costco, block royalty. You start noticing who walks around with confidence, whose backpack has the unmistakable crinkle of plastic packaging. A roll of Coban wrap is worth its weight in soft pretzels, and a box of surgical masks can get you anything short of a scepter token. Even the children are in on it. They trade cartoon-themed bandages at recess, comparing rare designs the way other kids used to compare Pokemon cards. "I'll give you 2 Spider-Mans for your unicorn gauze," one says. There's a rumour that the nurse at the school has a hidden supply of Paw Patrol bandages, only given out for true emergencies like scraped knees or a truly embarrassing pimple. At the pharmacy, the real action happens in whispers. You slide your request across the counter, trying to sound casual. "Any more of those 4x4s in stock?" The pharmacist gives you a look, then slowly reaches under the counter, producing a precious packet. No plastic bag, no receipt, just a silent nod of understanding. You leave the store feeling like you just completed a secret mission. There's an etiquette to the exchange too. No hoarding, at least not publicly. If someone's wound is leaking through their t-shirt, you help out. Neighbourhood Facebook groups become swap meets. Posts read like classified ads. Have, alcohol swabs, need, surgical tape, will deliver. People meet in parking lots, goods changing hands with the awkward politeness of a first date. And when supplies run low, and they always run low, you start improvising. T-shirts become slings. Paper towels are folded and layered until they resemble something a Civil War medic would approve of. Duct tape, the universal fixer, steps up when proper tape runs out. There's even a kind of pride in the ingenuity. It's not pretty, but it'll hold. Some households have emergency kits that look like something FEMA would distribute after a minor earthquake. Hydrogen peroxide, gloves, half a dozen unopened containers of petroleum jelly, and a collection of half-used ointments, some so old they list MySpace as the emergency contact. Still, you keep them all, because you never know. What's striking is that for all the bartering and competition, there's an undercurrent of generosity. If you're desperate, the block comes through. Someone always finds an extra pad, a leftover roll, or a few spare wipes. Wounds, like gossip and casseroles, are shared burdens. The only thing tighter than your bandage is the bond between neighbours, forged in the trenches of daily survival. So you count your supplies before bed, tucking away your bandages like savings bonds, hoping you'll need them less tomorrow. But if not, you know exactly who to call, what to trade, and how to keep the economy, however sticky or makeshift, alive and well in the city of brotherly love. Philly has always had a unique aroma, but the Xylazine era has introduced some new notes. You breathe in and try to identify the bouquet. Is that decaying garbage, historical mustiness, or just a passing jogger's open wound? Scent is memory, they say, but in Philadelphia, scent is also survival. You step out your front door and the city hits you like a surprise sandwich to the face. A little sweet, mostly savoury, occasionally alarming. You squint into the daylight, nose twitching like a detective sniffing out clues at a crime scene. Not every city can boast an authentic urban musk strong enough to double as a tourist deterrent, but Philly always aims to overachieve. Every block has its own signature. Kensington gives you the classic blend, a foundation of old fryer grease and car exhaust, topped with the sharp tang of spilled malt liquor and the distant, haunting notes of what used to be someone's mattress. You pass a pile of trash bags awaiting pickup, each marinating in the sun, perfuming the air with ode unspeakable. You try not to inhale too deeply, but the wind changes and suddenly you're getting hints of pickled onion, shoe leather, and is that Vicks Vapo Rub, or has someone just tried to disinfect the sidewalk again? Back in the day, Philly's smellscape was limited to cheesesteaks, fresh bread, and whatever the Schuylkill River was up to after a hard rain. But now, there's a new player in town, the medical funk. Hospitals and clinics do their best, but antiseptic and wound salve ride the breeze like misplaced hope. On certain corners, you catch the nose-tingling tingle of rubbing alcohol, fighting a losing battle with week-old pizza crust. Sometimes you can practically taste the latex in the air, proof that half the neighbourhood is swapping gloves and bandages with the same intensity they reserve for gossip about the Eagles. Summer heat doesn't help. The sun has a special way of unlocking the city's fragrance portfolio. It bakes everything, trash, concrete, and humanity itself, into a low-hanging haze that clings to your clothes and your psyche. You try to walk fast, but everyone knows that just stirs things up. Some residents arm themselves with scented masks, hoping to filter the worst of it. Others opt for the classic Philly method, aggressive denial, and a lot of nasal breathing through a hoagie roll. Inside isn't always better. The old row homes have their own olfactory charm. Musty carpets, mystery mildew, and that faint peppery whiff that tells you someone somewhere just microwaved leftover crab fries. Your own bathroom adds to the mix with its mosaic of cleaning product scents, all battling for supremacy and all ultimately losing to the faint lingering tang of city water. Despite everything, you get used to it. You become a connoisseur, able to identify blocks by scent alone. North Philly after rain, earthy, metallic, with a note of despair. South Philly at dinner time, Pure fried onions and distant family arguments. Center City in August. A heady bouquet of luxury soap, overripe street fruit, and the collective exhaustion of 10,000 commuters. You even develop a weird fondness for it all. There's comfort in the familiar, in knowing exactly where you are and who you're with, whether it's a parade of sanitation trucks or your neighbour's dog marking the block for the 5th time that morning. You joke about bottling it up and selling it as Philadelphia No. 5. Tourists would gag, but locals might buy it for nostalgia's sake. And so, you carry on, nose wrinkled, shoulders hunched, but strangely at peace with the city's ever-evolving scent symphony. Because in Philly, if you can handle the smell, you can handle anything. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, maybe you'll dream of clean laundry and fresh air, or maybe, if you're truly from here, you'll just dream of a cheesesteak and call it a win. Who needs a doctor when you have YouTube and sheer desperation? You MacGyver your wounds with whatever's handy. Super glue, a sock, maybe even a slice of American cheese. It's not recommended, but hey, you're still here. This is the Philadelphia approach to medicine. Equal parts resourcefulness, stubbornness, and the absolute refusal to pay an urgent care copay unless you've lost more than a pint of blood. Out here, necessity isn't just the mother of invention. It's the cranky aunt who yells at you to walk it off while handing you a Band-Aid from 1997. If you can't fix it with household supplies, it probably wasn't meant to be fixed at all. You learn the art of patch and pray early. Need stitches? Good luck. Those are just fancy strips of medical tape you cut yourself with kitchen scissors. No Neosporin. Slather on some coconut oil and a positive attitude. When things get really desperate, you scroll through online forums to see if anyone's tried using honey, ketchup packets, or the blessed healing power of duct tape. The answer is yes, and, incredibly, sometimes it even works. Everyone has a story. You remember the time your friend stapled their cut closed because they'd seen it on a survival show? Or when you used a chip clip to hold together a particularly stubborn finger gash. That finger's still attached, more or less. The scar is just a conversation starter now, Philly's version of a family crest. And then there's the magic of YouTube University. You've watched enough how to treat an abscess at home videos to qualify for a doctorate in questionable medicine. The hosts always seem chipper, brandishing medical tools that look suspiciously like office supplies. All you need is a little courage and some patience, they say. What they don't mention is the cleanup, the anxiety, or the way your kitchen suddenly smells like a cross between a hospital and a pizza shop. Of course, you're not alone. The entire city seems to be in on the act. Neighbours share tips, put garlic on it, keeps vampires and infection away, wrap it tight and keep it elevated unless it starts to throb, then lower it and call your cousin's ex-girlfriend, she's in nursing school. Old heads offer up ancient remedies involving vinegar, a shoelace, and the power of positive thinking. Whether or not any of it works is beside the point. The real therapy comes from telling the story later and getting a nod of approval from someone who once used duct tape to hold a broken toe in place for a month. There's an odd kind of pride in being your own medic. You start building a mental inventory of what you can fix and what you definitely, absolutely shouldn't. Paper cuts, easy, lip balm and a pep talk, sprained ankle, ice, rest, and, if needed, a makeshift splint from 2 chopsticks and a Philly Inquirer. But there are boundaries. You know when to draw the line, usually around anything that looks purple, oozes, or reminds you of a science experiment gone wrong. That's when you finally consider, reluctantly, seeking professional help. Still, the home remedy circuit persists. You've seen people use saran wrap to waterproof a cast, or a slice of Wonder Bread as an emergency wound pad. It's sterile if it's fresh. You've marvelled at the ingenuity, the optimism, and yes, the underlying anxiety that drives people to improvise rather than admit to anyone, least of all themselves, that things might be out of control. But if there's one thing you learn, it's that Philly's spirit is tough, scrappy, and endlessly creative. You keep going, you keep taping, and you keep joking. Because if laughter is the best medicine, you're practically overdosing, and hey, that's one remedy that never runs out. So tonight, as you check your latest patch job and toast your survival with a microwave soft pretzel, remember, in the city of brotherly love, even your bandages have attitude. And for better or worse, you wouldn't have it any other way. Looking for love? Good luck. Between no scabs as a Tinder requirement and the constant risk of catching something, Philly's dating scene has never been this exciting, or this medically risky. Swiping right has always been a gamble, but now it's practically an extreme sport. You scroll through profiles where fully healed wounds is considered a green flag, and everyone's first message is some variation of, "Hey, are you up to date on your tetanus shot?" Forget about walks in the park. Philly singles have learned to flirt while standing at a safe, disinfected distance, swapping selfies of their best no visible lesions days. Your first date options are, let's say, creative. Dinner at a cheesesteak joint, but you both insist on sitting in the corner, away from the open window and any possible droplets. A romantic walk through the Italian market, sidestepping trash bags and doing synchronized dodges around any bandaged elbows. There's a mutual understanding. If you trip and fall, your date's only helping you up if they're wearing gloves. Conversation is different now. Small talk about the weather is replaced with an honest rundown of your most recent wound care regimen. What do you do for work? Well, I'm between jobs, but I have a great system for treating road rash. On a second date, you might share scar stories. Nothing says I'm really into you like showing someone the spot on your leg that finally closed up after 2 months. Bonus points if it didn't even leave a weird colour. Intimacy has its own Philly-specific complications. You're both aware that a spontaneous makeout session could require a follow-up with antibiotic ointment. You casually check each other for fresh bandages and, in a moment of true vulnerability, exchange favourite brands of hand sanitizer. In some cities, love is blind. In Philadelphia, love is antiseptic. Even meeting the family is a new kind of ordeal. Your mum eyes your date, scanning for limp or obvious wounds, and offers them a seat on a freshly Lysoled chair. Grandpop tells stories about how he met your grandmother during the polio scare, and insists this generation has it easier. At least you have better wound care and dating apps. Everyone agrees not to shake hands, and yet hope persists. People flirt with their eyes above masks, send late-night texts about pharmacy restocks, and deliver care packages of gauze and chocolate chip cookies. In a world where every little gesture feels bigger, you discover new ways to connect. A shared laugh over the city's latest horror story. A quiet understanding when one of you mentions missing a doctor's appointment because the bus was too spicy. There's even a new dating app, Suture, just for folks who know their way around an ACE bandage and can quote the CDC like poetry. Of course, you hear the horror stories. The couple who bonded over their matching wrist wraps, only for the relationship to fall apart when one of them started reusing bandages. The disastrous date where someone mixed up hand sanitizer and hot sauce packets. But you also hear about the successes. Neighbours who fell in love while trading supplies, 2 nurses who started seeing each other after meeting at a street clinic, the pair who celebrated their 6-month anniversary by getting matching flu shots. The city adapts. You see couples on stoops holding hands through nitrile gloves, giggling about whose bandage matches their outfit best. You hear a new kind of pickup line. Is your wound looking better today? And sometimes that's all you need to know someone cares. Because at the end of the day, Philly love isn't always pretty, and it's rarely smooth. But it's real, it's resilient, and it endures, one careful, disinfected hug at a time. In the age of tranq, romance isn't dead, it just comes with a free packet of antiseptic wipes. You think back to simpler times, when the biggest drug crisis was fentanyl. Now, Xylazine has upped the ante. It's like someone saw the opioid crisis and thought, let's add horses and rot. Not that anyone ever wanted an upgrade, but Philly never does things halfway. If there's a worst-case scenario, this city will make it a reality, and then complain about it, loudly with hand gestures. Fentanyl was already more than anyone could handle, an opioid so potent a pinch could flatten an elephant, and yet somehow it became the background hum of life in entire neighbourhoods. Everyone had a story, a friend, a cousin, a neighbour who didn't wake up. Narcan kits became as common as soft pretzels, and there was always a flyer for a new support group taped to the utility pole next to lost cat posters. But just as you start to believe that maybe, just maybe, you've seen the worst, along comes Xylazine, nicknamed Trank. Part horse tranquilizer, part urban legend, part ongoing medical disaster. The logic makes no sense, but since when does drug culture follow logic? Some days, it feels like there's a secret competition. Which city can brew up the weirdest, most horrifying cocktail? And Philly, never one to lose, is now the poster child for pharmaceuticals that were never meant to meet. You scroll through old news headlines and shake your head. There's a strange nostalgia for the days when Bad Batch meant a little too much fentanyl, not the possibility of your skin giving up the ghost entirely. Not that fentanyl was ever safe, it just didn't come with a side of flesh-eating horror. Overdose rates soared. The city responded with outreach teams, Narcan handouts, posters in every public bathroom, and an endless stream of public service announcements. There were moments of hope. Someone revived, a neighbour helped, a life pulled back from the edge. Then came Trank, and with it, a whole new wave of confusion. The stuff wasn't even made for humans, but here it was, showing up in baggies and needles, a cheap cut that stretched the high and sometimes stretched the limits of what the human body could endure. ER docs started whispering about the wounds. Outreach workers wore gloves like armour. Pharmacies doubled their gauze orders. And still, the city trudged on, as always, adapting in real time. You start to realise the story isn't just about drugs. It's about the slow, grinding effect of hopelessness, poverty, and plain old bad luck. It's about how systems break down, one missing social worker at a time, until people turn to whatever numbs the day or the pain. When fentanyl arrived, people were already tired. By the time Trank rolled in, the collective exhaustion had calcified into a kind of citywide low-grade dread. People find humour in the darkness. Remember when we just had to worry about overdosing, someone says in the checkout line? There's a knowing laughter, Philly gallows humour at its finest. The jokes don't cure anything, but they help you get through, like a band-aid on a bad cut. Not enough, but something. And still, solutions keep coming, however patchwork. There are more harm reduction clinics, more mobile wound care vans, more volunteers out on the street with gloves, hope, and as much patience as they can muster. Narcan is handed out with grocery bags. The conversation shifts. Not just how do we stop this, but how do we help the ones who are still here? So you look back, tracing the winding, miserable road from fentanyl to Xylazine. It's easy to feel defeated, but Philly never quite stays down. There's grit, there's stubbornness, and there's always someone with a cup of coffee and a sarcastic word about the latest crisis. And as you drift off, you remind yourself, history is ugly, but people are tougher, and in Philly, nobody faces it alone, not even when the next twist is stranger than fiction. There's always that one hero, usually a pharmacist with zero chill and too many opinions. Armed with latex gloves and a megaphone, they wage a one-person war against open wounds and misinformation. In Philadelphia, where the neighbourhood pharmacy is as much a gossip hub as a medical supply centre, this pharmacist is both a fixture and a legend. You know the type, glasses perched on their nose, hair tied back in a practical bun, voice strong enough to silence a scepter bus. Their name is shouted across the street, invoked in late-night texts, and even painted on the cardboard signs outside the store, ask for Rita. She'll save your life, or at least tell you what's wrong with your rash. Rita, or maybe Tony, or perhaps Dr. Ramona, depending on your zip code, doesn't suffer fools or rumours. They've lived through every drug panic the city can remember: crack, fentanyl, K2, and now Xylazine. Most people would wilt, but Philly's pharmacist hero just doubles down. Their pharmacy counter is an island in the storm. One side is shelves of gauze and peroxide, the other a growing pile of homemade flyers that read, "No, you cannot cure rot with Gatorade." The daily routine is a slapstick mix of triage and education. Every morning starts with a fresh box of gloves, a prayer for patience, and a check of the wound care inventory. You watch as they field questions that range from, "Does this look infected?" to, "Is it true the government put chips in the Band-Aids?" Rita's answers are blunt, sometimes bordering on poetic. That's not how antibiotics work. And yes, you need to see a doctor, preferably before Halloween. Customers come in clutching bags, prescriptions, and occasionally the kind of medical mystery that belongs in a textbook, not a storefront. Rita doesn't blink. She snaps on a glove, squints at the offending limb, and dispenses advice with equal parts medical authority and maternal concern. Sometimes she hands out Narcan kits like Halloween candy, making sure everyone knows how to use them, even if they don't plan to need it. In her spare moments, few and far between, she's lecturing the block's teenagers about needle safety, or phoning the city council to demand more wound care clinics. She's got a system for everything. Gauze gets locked up at night. Syringes are only handed over after a stern talk. Every customer leaves with at least one new piece of medical trivia. Did you know you can't use duct tape on an open wound? Tell your cousin to stop. The regulars respect her rules. The new folks learn fast. Anyone who tries to cut in line is met with a look so sharp it could sterilize a scalpel. Neighborhood stories grow around her exploits. There was the day she caught someone trying to self-medicate in the restroom. She marched them out, patched them up, and found them a place at the local support group. Or the time she staged a clean hands intervention, handing out sanitizer and refusing to let anyone touch the display case without proof of a recent wash. She's been known to chase after customers with extra gloves, to refuse service to anyone who won't listen, and to call in favours from every nurse and social worker within a 5-block radius. Her megaphone sits by the register, ostensibly for emergencies, but sometimes used to broadcast reminders like, "Don't believe everything you hear on TikTok," and for the last time, put a bandage on that before you get on the bus. In a city where survival often means improvising, Rita or Tony or Ramona stands firm, a stubborn, well-informed lighthouse in a sea of confusion. She can't save everyone, but she makes sure you leave better off than you arrived. And in Philly, that makes her a local legend, whether she likes it or not. Inside every Philly native's bag, hand sanitizer, gloves, a bottle of iodine, and a snack. You never know when you'll need to clean a wound or bribe someone for an extra napkin. Welcome to the era of everyday preparedness, Philadelphia edition. Your old backpack, once reserved for laptops and last year's gym clothes, now rattles with medical supplies worthy of a paramedic. The zipper is permanently askew, stretched by the lumpy geometry of gauze pads, energy bars, and enough latex gloves to host a midnight balloon animal contest. If a TSA agent ever checked your bag, you'd have to explain why you're ready for both a block party and an emergency field dressing. Organisation is key. You start with a main pocket, lined with the essentials, a half-used bottle of sanitizer, its label peeling but its bite as fierce as ever. There's a little tin for antibiotic ointment, travel size of course, plus a roll of medical tape that's been unspooled and re-rolled so many times it now resembles modern art. Somewhere in the mix is a single-use saline rinse you keep just in case, though you're not sure what case you're actually waiting for. The next pouch is all about snacks. You never know how long you'll be on your feet, and low blood sugar is nobody's friend. Granola bars, a couple of wrapped peppermints, sometimes a protein shake that spent too long in the bottom of the bag. It doubles as a negotiation chip. Trade a snack for an extra bandage, or use it to bribe a friend into checking the back of your arm for suspicious spots. Your gloves are folded neatly, but within a week they multiply, tangled with loose change and receipts from every pharmacy in a 5-mile radius. There's a system, one pair for routine errands, another for possible biohazard, and a secret stash of bright purple ones for when you want to look stylish while tending to a scrape. Philly knows how to make wound care fashion. Then comes the pocket for miscellaneous emergencies. Tiny scissors, a few alcohol wipes, and a travel-sized bottle of iodine that leaks if you look at it sideways. Band-aids in every colour and shape. Classic beige, neon green, unicorn-themed, because nothing says I survived another day like a wound covered in cartoon magic. But it's not all practicality. There's always a bit of superstition mixed in. Maybe a lucky charm, a piece of quartz, a button from an old coat, or a keychain shaped like the Liberty Bell tucked next to the sterile pads. Sometimes you keep a spare charger, because in a real crisis, the only thing worse than a flesh wound is a dead phone battery. In Philly, this kit is a badge of honour. Show up at a friend's house and pull out gauze at the first sign of a paper cut? You're a hero. Offer someone a pre-moistened wipe before they tackle the subway turnstile? You're a legend. Someone always forgets something, and the group's collective kit is a patchwork of generosity and mild paranoia. Occasionally, you wonder how people in other cities survive with nothing but lip balm and a dream. In Philadelphia, you need a Swiss Army approach to daily life. Part medic, part snack dealer, part motivational speaker for anyone on the verge of panic over a mysterious bruise. You check your supplies before bed, restocking what's low, patting the kit like a beloved pet. It's not just preparation, it's comfort. Knowing you're ready for whatever the city throws at you, be it a scraped knee, a surprise rainstorm, or the eternal question of what's that on your skin, lets you sleep just a little easier. Because here, your survival kit isn't just about wounds and wipes. It's a reminder that Philly may be rough, but you're tougher and you're always, always ready. Sanitation in Philly is a work of abstract art. The city sends trucks, but the Xylazine apocalypse laughs in the face of trash bags. You dodge puddles and wonder if the EPA will just declare the sidewalk a protected wetland. In Philadelphia, you don't so much walk down the block as you embark on a tactical obstacle course. Potholes are filled with mystery liquids. A patch of sidewalk that looks safe at sunrise can, by noon, sprout a small ecosystem of coffee cups, energy drink cans, and the occasional very suspicious sock. Officially, there are street sweepers, but you mostly see them going by at 4 a.m, brushing more dust into the air than they remove, like a gentle nod to the idea of cleanliness, rather than its actual practice. You start each morning with a silent prayer. May the trash be contained, the puddles shallow, and the wind blowing in a direction that does not bring odour dumpster directly to your nostrils. In the Xylazine era, every day is a new challenge. The bags stack up, sometimes pick through, sometimes burst open, always, somehow, sticky. You could swear you saw the same banana peel last week, looking more philosophical by the day. Curb your dog, the signs say, as if the city's canines are to blame for everything. But even the dogs are walking on tiptoe these days. Rats, for their part, are thriving. They've achieved a level of urban savvy that would make a Wall Street executive blush. You spot them on late-night trash runs, giving side-eye to the pigeons who've grown fat on a diet of soft pretzels and lost hopes. Of course, there are city employees who try, valiantly, to keep up. You see them in neon vests, wielding brooms, shovels, and a 1,000-yard stare. They wage daily war against a never-ending avalanche of wrappers, bottles, and the unique blend of unknown substance that soaks into the concrete never to be removed. Locals give them nods of respect and occasionally hazard pay in the form of a Gatorade or a kind word. It's a thankless job. For every block cleared, 2 more fill up with takeout containers and medical supply wrappers. But the most creative efforts come from the residents themselves. There's the woman down the street who sweeps her stoop every morning with a broom that's more duct tape than bristle. Someone else has fashioned a garbage corral out of milk crates and sheer determination. In summer, enterprising kids sell footpath maps to the safest, driest spots. $1 for an escorted tour, $2 if you want them to carry your groceries. It's not just about aesthetics. People here have turned sidewalk navigation into an Olympic event. You master the Philly swerve, a sideways hop around a mystery stain, and the double back when you spot a used glove blocking your usual route. In rainy weather, it's Frogger for adults. Leap from dry patch to dry patch, praying your shoes survive and your immune system holds. There are rumours of heroic cleanups, midnight missions where neighbours gather, trash bags in hand, armed with rubber gloves and an air of quiet defiance. But by sunrise, a new layer has descended. You start to suspect the sidewalks regenerate mess overnight, like a mythical beast with 1,000 sticky heads. Still, you persevere. The trash, the puddles, the ever-present what even is that? They're just another part of daily life. Maybe the city will get it under control, maybe it won't. Either way, Philly will keep stepping over the mess and getting on with things. It's not always pretty, but it's real, and it's home. And if you ever want to know the true meaning of resilience, just watch a local dodge a 4-foot puddle and never break stride. Who's really behind the Xylazine influx? Theories abound. Is it the cartels, Big Pharma, the ghost of William Penn, or just a city-wide plot to make hand sanitizer a luxury good? This is Philadelphia, after all, a city where everyone's got a theory and nobody's shy about sharing it. You can't stand in line at the pharmacy or wait for the 3 bus without overhearing someone breaking down their latest hypothesis about where tranq comes from and why it always seems to show up just when the city thought things couldn't get any stranger. Some blame the usual suspects. "It's the cartels," whispers the guy at the corner deli. Bagel in one hand, copy of the Inquirer in the other. They're always 2 steps ahead. Fentanyl got old, so now it's all about the horse stuff. He lowers his voice as if the walls have ears. Next year it'll be elephant tranquilizer. Mark my words. Others point a finger at Big Pharma. The logic is classic Philly. They made opioids, didn't they? What's a little xylazine between friends? There are stories of warehouses in Jersey packed with barrels labelled for veterinary use only, and of shady deals going down in the same alleys where people once traded in baseball cards or, more recently, those hard-to-find N95 masks. Then there's the supernatural crowd. Someone on your block swears it's all the fault of William Penn, the city's founder, who's still holding a grudge after being stuck atop City Hall for 2 centuries of municipal mismanagement. You build a city on top of marshland and bad decisions, and the ghosts are bound to get restless, says your neighbour, whose hobbies include amateur history and giving out suspiciously accurate weather predictions. And of course, there are the real deep cuts, the folks who suspect it's all part of a citywide marketing campaign for hand sanitizer. Have you noticed how every store's out of the cheap stuff, but there's always fancy, overpriced sanitizer left? Somebody's making money, and it's not us. It's not quite Watergate, but in Philly it's not impossible either. You catch snippets of new conspiracy recipes every day. "It's in the water," says one Facebook group. "That's why the tap tastes funny." Someone else blames it on the Eagles' losing streak every time the team tanks. The city's collective morale drops, and new street drugs appear like clockwork. You try not to get sucked in, but it's hard not to enjoy the creativity. In reality, the truth is probably as messy and boring as bureaucracy always is. Xylazine sneaked in as a cheap filler, slipped past regulations meant for other drugs, and now it's everywhere, like a bad smell nobody can pin down. But in a city as battered and resilient as Philly, plain facts rarely satisfy. The stories are more fun, and they make the chaos seem almost manageable. If you can laugh about the ghost of William Penn, or dream up a cabal of sanitizer barons. Maybe the flesh-eating stuff doesn't seem quite so unbeatable. Still, you keep your ear to the ground. Philly residents are nothing if not vigilant. Every new theory is dissected, debated, and ultimately added to the folklore. It gives people something to talk about, something to own, a little control over the uncontrollable. Maybe it's all just a way to feel less helpless. Maybe, deep down, everyone hopes the real answer is weird enough to be worth all the trouble. So, you nod along, weighing every story, every wild theory, every whispered word in the corner store. After all, if history's taught you anything, it's that the truth in Philadelphia is always complicated, layered with jokes, rumours, and the tiniest grain of actual fact. But that's what makes it home. Nobody has the answers, but everyone has a story. And sometimes that's all you really need. In Philly's ER, the waiting room is like a festival for people who wish they were somewhere else. Everyone's got a story, and every nurse deserves hazard pay and possibly sainthood. You arrive with your minor medical emergency, hoping for the best but braced for the worst. The sliding doors open, and you step into the fluorescent purgatory of triage, assaulted by the scent of hand sanitizer and the whir of ancient vending machines. Plastic chairs line the walls, each one occupied by a cross-section of Philadelphia, grandmothers clutching brown paper bags, construction workers with questionable bandages, parents cradling feverish toddlers, and that guy in the corner who appears to be here mostly for the free cable. You grab a seat, careful to hover just above the upholstery, a survival skill honed over years of scepter rides and city benches. You clutch your bag of essentials, ID, insurance card, a snack for what could be a long haul, and your personal stash of sanitizer. On the mounted TV, the news scrolls through doom and traffic. Someone is always coughing. Somewhere a baby is always crying. You try to keep your distance from both. Check-in is the first test of patience. The triage nurse is a marvel, calm, efficient and unflappable, gently sorting the truly urgent from the merely unlucky. You do your best to look both polite and just distressed enough to merit a little attention. You're given a wristband, a set of vague instructions, we'll call your name soon, just have a seat, and are released into the wild. Time moves differently in an ER. Minutes blur into hours, your phone battery drains, your snack supply dwindles, and your optimism fades. The air is thick with anticipation and the quiet thrum of shared suffering. You study the faces around you, mentally ranking whose injury looks most deserving. You swap stories in hushed tones. "Been here since 10 a.m, says a woman holding an ice pack to her ankle. "I came in last week, got out just before breakfast," says another, as if discussing an all-night diner. The staff are saints and magicians, moving briskly between curtained cubicles, dispensing both medical advice and sarcastic wisdom. They know the regulars by name and the newcomers by their questions. You marvel at their stamina, their wit, their ability to juggle 1,000 emergencies and still find the time to offer a cup of water or a word of comfort. Sometimes the only thing keeping the room from descending into chaos is the steady hand of Nurse Linda, who's been running this rodeo since the Clinton administration and is not impressed by much. Somewhere in the corner, a family has set up what can only be described as a picnic. 2 teens play cards while their mum naps on her purse. Across the way, a man is on his second can of ginger ale, watching reruns of a show no one else remembers. Someone cracks a joke about Philly's world-class healthcare experience, and laughter ripples across the room. There's a sense of camaraderie, of shared ordeal. If you weren't all here for wounds, fever, or mysterious rashes, it could almost be mistaken for a block party. Hours pass. Names are called. Some people vanish into the maze behind the swinging doors, and new arrivals trickle in to replace them. You've started to feel invested in the fate of your fellow waiters. You hope the crying baby finally gets some sleep, the limping man gets his stitches, The anxious woman hears good news. Eventually your turn comes. You shuffle forward, grateful and exhausted to be greeted by another smiling nurse. As you disappear down the hallway, you realise that in Philly, even waiting is a communal sport. You leave a little less alone, a little more patient, and a lot more appreciative of everyone who keeps this chaotic miracle running, one clipboard and one kind word at a time. Somehow, through the rot and the ruin, Philadelphia keeps going. People laugh, argue about sports, and keep living, because if Philly knows anything, it's how to survive with attitude. Resilience here isn't some motivational poster or slogan printed on a mug. It's a way of life, hard-earned and worn like a badge. When other cities would throw in the towel, Philly just throws the towel in the wash, along with a prayer that the laundromat doesn't eat it. There's an energy here, humming under the surface, that says, whatever comes, we'll handle it, and we'll probably roast it while we do. You see it on every block, every bus, every battered stoop. That neighbour whose house has been under light renovation for the last decade? Still here, paintbrush in hand, laughing at the idea of hiring a professional. The kid dribbling a half-flat basketball around puddles, improvising a hoop out of a milk crate and sheer willpower. The old guy sweeping his stoop with one good knee, pausing to shout, "Go birds," at every passing car. Survival isn't just individual here, it's a team sport, full of assists, blocks, and the occasional friendly foul. Of course, Philly resilience is never just about grit. It's about jokes. The darker, the better. You walk into a coffee shop and hear someone say, "The city's falling apart, but at least the soft pretzels are still fresh." Another customer chimes in, "If my arm falls off, at least I won't have to shake hands with my in-laws." That's the thing about Philly humour. It's an all-weather jacket, just thick enough to keep the bad times at bay. No crisis is so dire it can't be softened by sarcasm and a reference to the last time the Eagles choked in the playoffs. And then there's the denial. Not the clueless, head-in-the-sand kind, but the active, resourceful, what, me worry, brand. The city runs on a sturdy mix of hope and stubbornness. Sure, the news is bad, the wounds are real, and the odds are long, but has that ever stopped anyone here before? Philly's secret is pretending things are fine, right up until the moment they actually are. Maybe it's not healthy, but it's effective. You'll see a neighbour with a suspicious bandage wave off concern. Just a scratch. Looks worse than it is. Now about those sixers. In moments of chaos, denial and humour blend together, making something surprisingly sturdy. It's why the block comes together when someone needs help. Why the city still throws block parties in the shadow of chaos. Why the stoops are always filled with people watching, talking and keeping each other honest. It's why, even in the worst of times, someone will roll their eyes and say, "We've been through worse." And maybe in Philly they actually have. There's a kind of poetry in the way Philly copes. When trash piles up, folks joke about urban composting. When the city's skyline is obscured by summer haze, someone points and says, "Looks better that way." Even when hope is in short supply, defiance isn't. People wear their scars and their attitudes out in the open, daring the city to do its worst. And it's not just surviving, it's living. It's celebrating birthdays in the alley. It's walking your dog through puddles and trash bags. It's making art from broken things and finding joy in unexpected places. It's the way the city greets every sunrise with a smirk and a shrug. Still here. Try again tomorrow. So when you wonder how Philly keeps going, remember, it's not just the city, it's the people, the grit, the jokes, the denial, the stubborn, scrappy insistence that life, even with all its mess, is worth living and laughing about together. Amidst the chaos, volunteers show up, handing out supplies, clean needles, and most importantly, a little dignity. It's the side of Philly that never makes the news but keeps hope alive. You see them before dawn, pulling up in battered vans or pushing rolling carts down broken sidewalks, the sky just starting to bleed pink above the L tracks. There's no fanfare, no spotlight, and certainly no parade. Instead, there's a stack of brown cardboard boxes, bandages, alcohol wipes, cotton gloves, water bottles, and hope, packed up neatly, handed out quietly, again and again. These are the quiet heroes. You might miss them at first, blending in with the early commuters or the block's regulars, but if you pay attention, you'll see the signs. The orange vests, the backpack bulging with gauze and snacks, the easy way they move from person to person. A nod, a quick, "How you holding up?" Sometimes a joke, sometimes just a gentle hand resting for a second on a shoulder. They don't ask for backstories, they don't judge, they hand out Narcan like candy, offer wound care advice you wish you'd heard earlier, and never flinch, not even at the worst of it. They know your name, they remember if you're allergic to latex, they hand you an extra granola bar just in case, and remind you to drink water, not just coffee. They see the parts of the city most people try not to look at, and instead of turning away, they walk right in. The block knows them, trusts them. You watch a volunteer change a bandage for a woman on the stoop. The whole process somehow calm, almost ordinary, even as the world speeds by. Kids wave as the van goes by some mornings, the only reliable visitors on the street. Old-timers nod, offering advice, coffee, or just a place to sit. There's a rhythm to it all. Check in, stock up, move on, repeat. Sometimes the work is easy. Someone needs gauze, you've got it. Someone needs gloves, take a handful. Other days it's harder. There are wounds you can't patch, stories you can't change, and needs that run deeper than your supply kit will ever go. Still, you show up. That's the rule here. Show up, do what you can, hope it's enough. Nobody gets paid for this, except in hugs, gratitude, and the rarest currency in Philly, trust. There's no app, no badge, no endless paperwork. It's grassroots, improvised, fiercely local. There's pride in being part of something that doesn't make headlines, but changes lives one bandage at a time. At night, when the city grows quiet and even the sirens seem to take a break, you remember the faces, tired, grateful, determined. You remember that one guy who finally made it to detox after months of encouragement. The woman who started volunteering herself, rolling up with fresh supplies and stories of her own. The small victories, so easy to miss in a city that always feels like it's sprinting toward the next crisis. You realize that harm reduction is about more than wounds and needles. It's about treating people like people, about refusing to give up on anyone, about holding a line against despair. It's slow, it's messy, it's not nearly enough, but it's something. So you lie back listening to the hum of the fan and the distant city sounds, and you think about those quiet heroes. Maybe tomorrow you'll thank them. Maybe you'll join them. Maybe you'll just remember that in Philly, even in the shadows, kindness refuses to disappear. And sometimes that's all the hope you need. Cable news loses its mind, headlines scream, but on the street life goes on. Philly's learned to tune out the noise because surviving here means ignoring most things, except the important stuff. You've seen the headlines, apocalyptic fonts, a scrolling parade of disaster, flesh-eating drug turns, Philly into a zombie wasteland. The anchors grimace, the maps light up in angry red, and experts you've never heard of use words like epidemic and urban decay before cutting to commercials for allergy pills. Every few weeks, a camera crew sets up shop outside the same Kensington storefront, searching for the most cinematic trash pile to use as a backdrop. The news cycle moves on, but the city never does. In living rooms across Philadelphia, people roll their eyes. "There they go again," your neighbour mutters, flipping past another panicked segment. The block's group chat is less about news alerts, more about who's got a plunger and do we need more gauze. The city has survived centuries of bad press, yellow fever, mobsters, stadium jail, the time someone greased the lamppost for the Super Bowl, so what's another round of breathless coverage? It's not that people don't care. It's just that Philly has always had a sixth sense for separating noise from news. On TV, it's all chaos and catastrophe. On your block, it's people sitting on stoops, kids playing in puddles, and a grandma watching the world from her porch. You notice the disconnect. The stories are real, but the panic isn't. Life carries on, right through the sirens and headlines. Of course, media panic breeds its own folklore. Within days, the city's latest scare turns into urban legend. Your cousin's friend swears he saw a zombie on Frankfurt Avenue. Someone starts a meme account, Trank Tank, posting blurry pictures of bandaged limbs and pigeons with strong opinions. Stories swirl. A guy who patched up a wound with a cheesesteak wrapper, the pharmacist who single-handedly kept a whole block from falling apart, the woman who started handing out hand sanitizer for luck. Philly's response to media panic is the same as it is to snowstorms and subway delays: denial, humour, and sheer stubborn routine. The bodega counter is covered in tabloid covers, but the real news is still the price of milk, the state of the Eagles, and which neighbour just got a new puppy. You watch locals mug for out-of-town reporters, giving interviews that range from deadpan sarcasm to pure performance art. Yeah, it's bad. Someone shrugs on camera, but at least the soft pretzels are still good. All the while, people adapt. Needles and Narcan, gauze and gloves, hope and humour. These are the tools of survival. You trade advice, not headlines. You help the neighbour with the limping dog. You organise block cleanups and wound care sessions far from the spotlight and the clickbait. And when the news crews pack up, the lights go off and the headlines move on to the next crisis, Philly keeps going. The myths grow in the retelling. Remember that time the whole country thought we were zombies? It's a story you'll laugh about eventually, even as you double-check your first aid kit and scan the street for the real stuff worth worrying about. Because in Philadelphia, everyone's got an inner compass for disaster. You know how to tune out the shrieking and focus on what actually matters: the neighbour who needs help, the friend who needs gauze, the block that needs cleaning. The world may think it's the end, but for you, it's just another Tuesday. So you mute the TV, settle in, and let the noise pass by. Because here, surviving isn't about panic. It's about knowing when to listen, when to laugh, and when to get to work. And if the media ever gets tired of the apocalypse, you'll still be here, watching, waiting, living, and maybe finally catching a break. Even with sirens, rot, and existential dread, you still manage to sleep. Maybe it's the exhaustion, maybe it's the fan, or maybe in Philadelphia, if you can sleep through this, you can sleep through anything. Night in Philly is an adventure unto itself. You settle onto your couch, or what passes for a bed these days, listening to the soft hum of the city. Out on the street, a siren wails and fades, then another rises in the distance, harmonizing with the occasional shout from the corner and the familiar rumble of the L. You pull a worn blanket over your shoulders, close your eyes, and practice that special kind of Philly meditation, letting the chaos blend into a lullaby. You've tried everything to sleep better. White noise apps? The city laughs at your gentle rain sounds and answers with its own playlist. Car alarms, late-night arguments about parking, the hypnotic beep of the crosswalk that never quite lines up with the light. In another city, these sounds might keep you awake. Here, they're as regular as a heartbeat, if your heartbeat also included a garbage truck and the world's most persistent pigeon. Your bedtime routine has evolved with the city's challenges. First, you check for clean sheets, or at least less gritty sheets. Then you hunt down a working fan. The fan is crucial. It blocks out the world, pushes away the heavy air, and gives you that all-important feeling of a bubble, one where you can actually drift off. You place it strategically, pointed directly at your face, like a gentle reminder that you're still here, still breathing, still stubborn enough to insist on a decent nap. Sleep hygiene experts would have a field day here. You've read all the tips: dim the lights, avoid caffeine, don't look at screens, but none of them mention how to deal with the distant scent of antiseptic and soft pretzel dough. You improvise. Maybe you light a candle, briefly and under supervision. Maybe you play a podcast just loud enough to drown out the existential dread. Or maybe, like most Philadelphians, you just shrug, roll over, and trust your body to do its best. If sleep refuses to come, you count. Not sheep, but city landmarks, 1 Liberty Bell, 2 art museums, 3 pigeons on a wire. Sometimes you replay the day's absurdities, that time you dodged a mysterious sidewalk puddle, the neighbour's latest wound update, the pharmacist's pep talk. The city itself is a story, and sometimes the story is so exhausting it rocks you to sleep. You're not alone in your nighttime rituals. Across the city, people are tucking in with whatever comfort they can muster. Old heads prop their feet on windowsills, listening to late-night talk radio. Kids nestle into blankets, dreaming of tomorrow's playground conquests. Somewhere, a night shift nurse is winding down with microwave leftovers and the low murmur of the news. You take comfort in knowing that Philly, for all its noise and nerves, finds ways to rest. There's a secret art to Philly sleep, accepting the imperfection. You let the world be noisy, let your worries float by, and grab whatever peace you can find. Maybe it's a good dream. Maybe it's just a few unbroken hours, but in this city that's victory. If you wake up to the same chaos tomorrow, at least you'll be rested enough to laugh at it. And so, you drift off, wrapped in the ordinary miracle of sleep, knowing that if you can nap through this, sirens, rot, the endless news cycle, you can nap through anything. You're tougher than the city's problems. You're part of its rhythm. And for tonight at least, you found your quiet in the middle of the storm. Sleep well, Philly. Tomorrow's another day. You step onto the Scepter bus, clutching your bag and any faith you have left in public infrastructure. The seats are a patchwork of duct tape and hope. Somewhere a guy is treating a suspicious wound with a wet nap, and the smell is less Fresh Start and more Biohazard, with a hint of nacho cheese. You settle in and play Philly's favourite transit game. Is that spilled soda or something much, much worse? It's 7:15 a.m, and already the day's first gamble has begun. You scan the rows of faded upholstery, mentally calculating which spot has the least visible stains and the lowest odds of making your pants stick. The front row offers proximity to the exit. Tempting, but riskier, thanks to the high volume of foot traffic and the lingering aroma of mystery cologne. The back row means squeezing past a wall of book bags and grumpy regulars, plus that one person who always brings a fish sandwich for breakfast. You take a seat in the middle, the Switzerland of public transit. Neutral, unassuming, just out of range of the kid practicing beatboxing, and the couple having a heated debate about who actually called window seat first. The driver's voice crackles over the PA, half-heartedly reminding everyone to please hold on and have your fare ready. You clutch the germ-speckled pole with your sleeve, grateful for your years of practice with the hover hand. The bus lurches forward, hitting the first pothole like it's aiming for extra points. Passengers sway in unison, a rolling wave of tired faces, stoic commuters, and the eternally confused tourist. You play eye contact bingo. Do you make friendly small talk with the grandma reading People magazine? Or do you keep your gaze firmly fixed on the safety poster featuring a raccoon wearing a face mask? For today, the raccoon wins. Outside, the city slides by in a blur of murals, bodegas, and the occasional police tape fluttering in the wind. On the bus, you tune into the soundscape, headphones leaking tinny beats, someone snoring, a toddler softly narrating every passing dog. You try not to notice the small puddles sloshing back and forth along the floor. No one dares investigate. It's simply accepted as the Philly special. Origin unknown, destination unclear. In your row, people negotiate space with quiet, elaborate choreography. Bags are shuffled, knees are angled, elbows are tucked. You nod politely to a woman who offers you a spare wipe. "I don't sit on these seats with anything I can't bleach," she confides, and you know you've found a kindred spirit. There's always that one moment, the sudden collective tension, when someone coughs without covering up. Eyes dart, hands reach for masks, and an invisible alarm bell rings. Someone cracks a joke. If that's not COVID, it's something way more Philly. The tension breaks with a round of dry laughter. As you roll down the avenue, you observe the great unspoken. Everyone is practicing a low-level form of denial. No one acknowledges the obvious. That's not a roach scurrying across the windowsill. That's just the city's express cleanup crew. The suspicious stain by the door? Definitely just spilled coffee. That guy changing a bandage in full view? Must be a nursing student, learning the ropes. By the time your stop approaches, you've become oddly comfortable. Maybe it's the collective grit. Maybe it's the numbness from years of shared inconvenience. You press the stop button with your elbow, shuffle down the aisle, and step out into the world. Pants only a little stickier, sense of humour fully intact. You survived another round of public transit roulette. No medal, just the satisfaction of having kept your shoes dry and your spirits undampened. In Philly, denial isn't just a coping mechanism, it's a lifestyle. And as the bus roars off behind you, you're already looking forward to the ride home. On every block there's an old head, a neighbourhood sage who's seen it all since the Eagles won their last Super Bowl. Today, he's warning the next generation. Back in my day, drugs just made you dance or nap, not liquefy. He offers tips for survival, city gossip, and, if you're lucky, the name of a doctor who won't judge your DIY bandages. You spot him every morning, posted up on the same stoop, perched atop a milk crate like it's a throne. His knit cap is pulled down just so, and he's got the perfect angle for keeping one eye on the street and the other on the door of the corner store. Nobody remembers exactly when he started his post, but everyone knows where to find him, and that's all that matters. The old head's got stories layered thicker than his winter coat. He'll tell you about the bad batch of 82, the citywide panic when someone confused powdered sugar with something much less sweet, and the time he swears he saw a guy survive a tumble down 3 flights of row house stairs only to land on his feet and walk off, muttering about missing a scepter transfer. He remembers when you didn't have to dodge anything scarier than an angry pigeon or a pothole so deep it had its own microclimate. But lately his stories come with more warnings and less nostalgia. He gestures at the kids with their faces in their phones and says, "You'll think this is new." Philly's always had its monsters. Just back then they didn't show up in syringes. He shakes his head at the mention of Xylazine. At least with the old stuff, you got a decent night's sleep. This new junk. Nah. Turn your arm into Swiss cheese and make you forget your own address. Ain't nothing romantic about that. Still, he's a well of practical wisdom. Need to clean a wound, but don't trust the tap water? He'll give you the rundown on the best bodegas for bottled water, and which brand of hand sanitizer don't smell like regret. Want a doctor who won't call the cops when you show up with a home-stitched gash? He's got a guy, just don't ask how he knows him. He'll even give you the name of the block's best unofficial nurse, the lady down the street with 3 grown sons and a garage full of first aid supplies. Most of all, he offers perspective, which is in shorter supply than clean gauze. He's seen scare after scare come and go. Every generation's got its bogeyman, he says. First, it was reefer madness, then crack, then fentanyl. Now it's this stuff that sounds like a horse tranquilizer and works like a horror movie. He'll tell you to keep your wits, watch your friends, and never ever trust a shortcut through the alley behind the laundromat, unless you want to come out smelling like 3 kinds of cheese. Kids listen, even if they pretend not to. Parents nod, grateful for someone who survived long enough to have advice worth taking. The old head's words ripple through the block, morphing into warnings, reminders, and eventually urban legend. Don't sit on that bench. It's cursed. If your cut starts itching at midnight, put a sock on it and whistle "Fly, Eagles Fly." Works every time. Some of it's pure fiction, but a lot is just Philly's way of translating real lessons into something you'll remember. At dusk, the old head packs up, satisfied he's dispensed enough wisdom for one day. As the streetlights buzz on, he offers a final tip. Stay sharp, stay safe, and don't let the news scare you more than the city does. He shuffles off down the block, leaving behind a cloud of cigarette smoke and a little more clarity than before. In a city where myth and reality dance side by side, the old head is both storyteller and guide. His tales keep you alert, his warnings keep you safe, and his presence somehow keeps hope alive. One block, one story, one day at a time. Some cities have therapy dogs. Philly has soft pretzels. When the world is falling apart, nothing calms the nerves like a warm, twisted breadstick from a street cart that's probably older than you are. Sure, it won't heal your wounds or explain xylazine, but for 5 minutes you remember what happiness tastes like. Salty, chewy, and faintly medicinal. Pretzels are the unofficial emotional support animal of Philadelphia. They're portable, affordable, and most importantly, edible. You can find them everywhere, outside the courthouse, by the subway steps, at every school fundraiser and Eagles tailgate. It doesn't matter if it's freezing rain or August humidity so thick it feels like soup. Someone, somewhere, is hawking fresh pretzels, and their plastic-wrapped tray is a beacon of hope in a city that never quite catches a break. The routine is always the same. You wander up to the cart, digging in your pocket for a wrinkled dollar bill. The vendor, gloves on, face impassive, eyes wise to the city's chaos, nods, hands you a pretzel, and gestures toward the tub of neon yellow mustard. There's a silent agreement. The exchange is about more than carbs. It's a little moment of control, a reminder that while you can't fix the city's wounds, you can at least fix your blood sugar. You take a bite, and it's everything you need it to be. Dense, soft, with just enough salt to sting your lips and snap you out of your spiral. It's oddly grounding. The chaos of ambulance sirens and news headlines fades away. Even the nearby street preacher and the guy arguing with a traffic cone pause long enough to watch you savour your snack. For a few precious bites, you feel almost normal. Philly pretzels have healing properties that modern science refuses to acknowledge. Maybe it's the carbohydrates, maybe it's the ritual, or maybe it's just the act of sitting on a curb with a treat that tastes like every good memory from childhood. You spot other locals doing the same thing, crowding bus stops, feeding pieces to pigeons, breaking pretzels in half to share with friends or even complete strangers. In a city that can feel divided by so much, the pretzel is a delicious truce. You can tell a lot about someone by how they eat their pretzel. The purists rip it by hand, savouring each twist. The multitaskers wield it one-handed while texting. The risk-takers dunk with wild abandon, slathering on enough mustard to clear the sinuses and cleanse the soul. Everyone's got their preferred cart, their secret mustard ratio, their theory about which corner sells the freshest batch. And for a few minutes, there's no crisis, just comfort. The city's wounds, both literal and metaphorical, can wait while you indulge in this edible hug. Pretzels don't judge your wounds or ask about your scars. They don't care if you haven't slept or if your bus was late or if your neighbour's wound-up date is getting more graphic by the day. They exist solely to distract and delight. Kids race home after school, clutching pretzels in brown bags, sticky salt on their fingers and nothing but possibility in their eyes. Workers in fluorescent vests lean against lampposts, munching and swapping stories. Even the pigeons seem a little less aggressive when the city smells like fresh bread. When the world feels uncertain, when the news feels too heavy, the simple act of eating a pretzel becomes a radical act of self-care. You savour every last crumb, tuck the napkin in your pocket and rise a little steadier. Maybe life won't make sense today. Maybe the wounds won't heal tomorrow. But for now, you've got a belly full of comfort and a city full of fellow snackers. And in Philly, sometimes that's enough. You scroll through local Facebook groups and Twitter feeds, where every other post is a PSA, a wound selfie, or a rant about city services. Hashtag Trank Talk is trending, but Philly keeps it real. Jokes, memes, and advice like don't use. But if you do, at least wear gloves. It's support group meets roast session, equal parts helpful and hilariously unhelpful. Social media in Philadelphia is less about influencers and more about instant community triage. You check your notifications and find a fresh flurry of posts. A neighbour wants to know if peroxide will stain her carpet. Someone's aunt is crowdsourcing the best urgent care for mystery rashes, and 3 different people are trading tips on which pharmacy is least likely to judge your 3rd box of gauze this week. If you ever wondered what the internet would look like if it was run by streetwise aunts and bored EMTs, welcome. The city's unofficial grapevine has moved online. 1 minute you're doom scrolling, the next you're in the middle of a 30-comment debate about whether Band-Aids actually stick to arms in August humidity. Hashtag Trank Talk threads are a surreal blend of raw honesty and dark comedy. This new batch got my arm looking like an extra from The Walking Dead, but at least I can still hold a cheesesteak. It's a space where people share wound care memes, compare hospital ER wait times, and roast the mayor's latest plan to clean up the block. And while some cities use Nextdoor for lost pets and suspicious vehicles, in Philly you get real-time warnings. Heads up, ambulance parked at Frankfurt and Tioga, bring your own gloves. Another thread reminds folks where to pick up free Narcan, followed by 3 users who can't resist making puns about shots and getting lit. Instagram is its own battlefield. Here, the flex isn't just filtered selfies, but who's got the neatest bandage job, or the best I survived the Kensington sidewalk story. It's a strange badge of honour to show off your healing wound with the perfect Philly background. Maybe the L, maybe a soft pretzel, maybe just your cat looking unimpressed by your latest ouch. Then there are the rants, city services, trash pickup, why the bodega ran out of soap again. Nothing escapes scrutiny. The comment sections fill with sarcasm and surprisingly specific advice. Can someone please explain why it's easier to get a cheesesteak at 2 a.m. than it is to find a clean public bathroom, asks one user. Because priorities, someone else replies, and also, have you seen our bathrooms? Of course, it's not all jokes and jabs. The city's digital crowdsourcing is the difference between isolation and belonging. Need a ride to the wound clinic? Someone's sliding into your DMs with an offer. Out of medical tape? 5 strangers are tagging you with the best deals in town. The online Philly community is quick to roast, but even quicker to help, no matter how weird things get. Even the memes are uniquely local. Liberty Bell with a bandage, Rocky's fist wrapped in gauze, Ben Franklin holding up a bottle of hand sanitizer with the caption, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of Narcan." These aren't just jokes. They're tiny lifelines, reminders that you're not alone, that everyone is wading through the same puddles, literal and metaphorical, and that even in a city full of skeptics, kindness finds a way. By midnight, your feed is a mosaic of Philly survival, complaints, commiseration, and enough wit to make the next day seem a little less daunting. You set your phone down, feeling oddly supported, and know that when you wake up someone will already be online, ready to trade bandage tips, roast the news, and remind you that in this city, no wound, physical or otherwise, goes unseen for long. And that's the real Philadelphia flex. When the sun goes down, McPherson Square, better known as Needle Park, takes on a new life. There's the distant whir of an ambulance, the soft hiss of a street sweeper, and someone playing old soul records from a shopping cart. You're never alone. Insomnia here is a group project, with lullabies sung by sirens and the city's undying sense of humour. The park glows under mismatched lamps, a patchwork of yellow halos catching dust and drifting bugs. Every bench is claimed, some by people hoping for sleep, others by those who know sleep is a rare, accidental luxury. The grass is thin, the ground is packed hard by years of footsteps, but the night air carries a surprising peace, a sense that, even at 2 a.m, the world hasn't quite stopped spinning. You hear it all, laughter bouncing off the playground slide, whispered debates about the best wound care clinic, a sudden burst of singing as two friends share a half-remembered chorus. Someone's always playing music, a portable speaker thumping out old-school R&B, a sound system jury-rigged from wires and dreams. Every so often, a passerby contributes their own soundtrack, a harmonica, a scratchy radio, the faint melody of someone's ringtone lost to the breeze. You tuck your jacket closer, feet planted on the chipped concrete. Above, the L rattles past, punctuating the night with mechanical applause. Its passing is oddly comforting, a reminder that the city never truly sleeps, that there are always stories unfolding in the hours most people never see. You watch the shadows shift, familiar faces moving in and out of streetlight, the woman who walks her dog at midnight, the old-timer with his deck of cards, the young man who spins in slow circles, lost in the rhythm of his headphones. Every night is different, but the rituals stay the same. Someone brews coffee over a camping stove, passing cups to anyone who wanders by. Someone else digs out gauze and wipes, tending to scrapes with the same focus as a surgeon. There's comfort in routine, even when the routine is survival. Conversations drift between languages, between hope and resignation, between jokes about City Hall and memories of better, or at least different, times. And then, the city's unofficial chorus. Sirens in the distance, sometimes drawing closer, sometimes fading into the hum of traffic. You learn to read the sirens. Not everyone is an emergency. Sometimes they're background, the audio wallpaper of city life. Sometimes they mean someone you know is having a rough night, and the park quiets as everyone listens, half worried, half numb. Still, the humour persists. A man in a Sixers hat pretends to direct traffic for invisible cars. Someone offers to sell you a limited edition city bus token, valid for one free wish and half a ride. Laughter floats up to the tired branches of the park's trees, small bursts of light in the long hours before dawn. On rougher nights, sleep never comes. You stare up at the stars. Well, what passes for stars between the clouds and the city glare, and remind yourself that even in the thick of trouble, people still find ways to gather, to talk, to listen. There's comfort in proximity, in knowing you're part of the strange, resilient fabric that keeps Needle Park humming through another night. When morning finally comes, the spell breaks. Street sweepers finish their rounds, buses rumble to life, and the world tilts back toward daylight. The music fades, the bench is empty, but the soundtrack of survival lingers. You leave the park tired, but not alone, ready to face another day in a city that refuses to let the darkness have the last word. In McPherson Square, even sleeplessness is shared, and somehow, in that company, you find a little strength for tomorrow. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your clean sheets and quiet room, spare a sleepy thought for the people of Philadelphia, those accidental pioneers surviving the Xylazine epidemic with a mix of grit, humour, and the unbreakable will to keep moving, even if it's with a limp. You've spent the last hour wandering the cracked sidewalks and storied neighbourhoods of a city that's seen everything. Revolution, reinvention, and now a flesh-eating street drug that would make even Ben Franklin raise an eyebrow and reach for some hand sanitizer. You've learned about the world's most suspicious bus seats, the power of a soft pretzel, and the local economy of gauze, duct tape, and unfiltered advice from the guy on the corner who claims he remembers the good old days, before wounds glowed in the dark. If there's one lesson Philly teaches, it's that humans can adapt to almost anything, given enough sarcasm and access to cheap carbohydrates. People here support each other in ways that never make the headlines, sharing clean needles, trading wound care tips, or just cracking a joke that makes the whole mess bearable for one more day. Even when the news screams apocalypse, the city just shrugs, tells you to grab a pretzel, and keeps going. So as you drift off, safe and warm, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to the city dwellers who laugh at disaster, nurse each other's wounds, and somehow find reasons to hope and help, even in the strangest of times. Because if history proves anything, it's that people are stubborn, creative, and sometimes just too tired to give up. Sleep well. Tomorrow's another day, hopefully with fewer open wounds, more good neighbours, and always, always a little more kindness. Good night.